Hello, Seamus Heaney Listen Now Again is divided into 4 sections, each reflecting one of the elements. Today I'm going to give you a virtual taster of the first section, Excavations, which corresponds with the element of earth. We look at Heaney's first steps into poetry that are very much rooted in his home soil. Let me bring you back to where it all began. Heaney was born on the 13th of April 1939 into a tiny little house called Mossbawn in Balachi in County Derry. He was the eldest of 9 children to parents Margaret and Patrick Heaney. Amazingly, the 9 Heaney kids, their parents and also their Aunt Mary lived in a 3-roomed house that had no running water or electricity. Heaney said that he felt his childhood was one that had been lived in the area for 600 years previously, with his family relying on the farm for their livelihood. After attending the Anahorish Primary School, Heaney won a scholarship to study at the prestigious St Columb's College as a boarder, and then another scholarship to study English literature at Queen's University, making him the first person in his family to go to university. It was at Queen's that he discovered his love of poetry and published some of his earliest works. In Excavations, we have the first poems that he published at Queen's University, where he signed himself in Certus, Latin for uncertain, as he took his first tentative steps as a poet. We also have a very early draft of what would become a favourite Irish poem, When All the Others Were Away at Mass, or Clearances 3, but here it was titled Dear Mam and Aunt Mary, with the opening line, When the Other Woman Was Away at Mass. Heaney's Aunt Mary lived with the family. She was very fond of him and Heaney loved her very much. He even writes a beautiful poem about his aunt called Mossbawn Sunlight, where his affection for his aunt is clear. Mossbawn features in a collection called North, which has more references to the Troubles than any other collection. So perhaps it's a bit odd for this loving poem about Heaney's home and his aunt to feature here. However, perhaps Heaney is showing that Mossbawn is a place of literal and metaphorical sanctuary for him during the violence of the Troubles. I love the line, the scone rising to the tick of 2 clocks. The 2 clocks represent the 2 different societies or eras that Heaney grew up in between. Remember I said that he felt like he grew up in a medieval era, yet we know that this was just on the brink of large-scale industrialisation. Interestingly, even the reliable old sound of the ticking of a clock is becoming part of history, with digital watches and phones available now today. The Irish bog is a powerful metaphor in Heaney's writing, because bogs preserve everything and they remember everything. And so it is a really useful tool in exploring Ireland's history through poem. One of Heaney's most famous bog poems is Bogland, where he writes, Our pioneers keep striking inwards and downwards. Every layer they strip seems camped on before. Heaney also became fascinated by bog bodies after reading P.V. Glob's The Bog People. He found a very powerful metaphor comparing the violent Iron Age deaths of the bog people to the violence occurring in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. Bog poems that come from this time include Strange Fruit and Punishment, and you can see drafts of these in Excavations. Finally, in Excavations, we see a glimpse into Heaney's family life and his evolving ability to write poetry about his immediate experience. Here we see an unpublished poem about his dog, Carlo, a Christmas Day diary entry in a nude notebook from his son, and also a handwritten draft of a love poem for his wife Mary, playfully entitled The Skunk. Thank you for listening. Please join us for the next section of the exhibition, Creativity.